Hello, I'm Professor Lieu. Welcome to our live stream. I'm going to be doing virtual office hours today. So today's stream is going to be a Q&A. Pick my brain, ask me anything you guys would like an opinion about. If you would like to grow as an artist and you can't afford an art class, we've got everything you need here at Art Prof, critiques and tutorials. And I was thinking, you guys, because it is my birthday today, I was thinking that I would have a co-host today because you guys have been asking me about meeting my pigs. And I was thinking, you know what? This is my birthday stream, which means I should be able to bring a guinea pig on the stream with me because Wheat's always curious. This is Wheat. I have 3 guinea pigs, by the way. I have Jub Jub, this is Wheat, and I also have Fluffy. And so now you guys can say that you've met my guinea pigs. Wheat is very big. If you guys look at him, he looks like he's wearing pants. He's got multiple patches here. So I was just thinking, it'd be nice for you guys to meet him because he's just great. And he's actually a co-star in some of our tutorials. If you guys have seen our creature design tutorial, Wheat was a little baby in that tutorial. He was very, very small. He is so not small anymore. Does everybody see how big he is? He's gigantic. Anyway, he's getting a little bit angsty, so I think I'm going to pass him off. But I just thought some of you guys would like to meet him, so that way you get to know our little family here. Okay, here, girls. Thank you. All right, guys, let's dig in to this live Q&A. Thank you very much for all the birthday wishes, you guys. Really appreciate that. And for all the super chats. Thank you to John and 10,000 Crows. Really appreciate it, you guys. My husband bought me 2 cakes. Actually, it's more because one of my kids is lactose intolerant, so she couldn't have one of the other cakes. I was like, oh, too bad. We're going to just get 2 cakes then. Awesome. I also spent the whole day working, by the way, which I don't really recommend on your birthday, but we have this event coming up on Sunday. The Art Prof 2020 graduation. It's a live stream event. We're going to be featuring art and design students from across the world. And we're going to show you their artwork that would have been in their final exhibitions, but which, because of the global pandemic situation, were canceled. So I am busting my butt right now to get this stream ready because, wow, we're featuring over 50 students. There's over 20 faculty and professional artists who contributed clips to this event. So we are really, really excited about this, but it's a ton of work. And so I just have been up all day editing like crazy. So I hope you guys will tune into this live stream. It's on Sunday at 1:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's going to be really, really cool. We've got people from Sweden, people from the UK, all across the US. We have people in 3D, 2D, painting, fine art, design, everything. It's going to be an amazing mishmash of different people and artists. I was editing some of the clips today. I'm not joking, you guys. I was like getting all choked up. Like, editing some of the clips. I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to anchor this live stream and not get all choked up because some of the clips, it's just, I don't know, it's emotional. I think for a lot of people. In fact, I have a couple students right now who are high school students and they're all posing in their graduation gowns on Instagram, obviously because there is no real graduation ceremony. And I just was like getting all like teary again. I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to make it through this month without having a complete emotional meltdown about everything that's going on. So anyway, guys, I am here today to answer all your questions. Well, not all of them, some of them, just a few in the amount of time that we have together. But I was also thinking, as I like to do every now and then, to give you guys a quick week in review in case you have been doing all kinds of other things, staying busy, which is always good, and want to know some of our recent streams. In fact, this was a very popular stream, this one about art commissions, because oh my goodness, wow. Has anybody here done a commission before? It's really hard, and there's a lot of challenges that are very difficult that you can't really anticipate until you've actually done it. And so Lauren and I, we told a couple horror stories about clients, but we also gave you guys some really good hard advice that you can implement if it turns out someday that somebody wants to commission work from you at some point. We also had this crit clash on Kim Jung-gi, who is a contemporary Korean artist. He's the artist who's very well known for drawing from his memory. Wow, I did not know this crit clash was going to get people so worked up. We had a lot of conversations in the Art Prof Discord, which was great. I think it's terrific when we're able to really talk about a lot of the various issues that are involved. So that was a really excellent stream to do. So check out the stream because I think it was really interesting to see where the conversation went. And there were so many different opinions. And I just really think it's great when we have discussions where we are able to put out there all these different points of view. Because we're not here at Art Prof to tell you guys this is right and this is wrong. We just want to expose you to a lot of different ways of working, of thinking about art. And then you get to step back and say, hey, you know what, this works for me. That didn't work for me. You really have to custom tailor your own creative approach. So pick my brain. What are you guys thinking about right now? Because I think that there's obviously right now a lot going on in the world. A lot of things seem to be really boiling over in a lot of the parts of the world. It's very hard, I think, not to be distracted. But I think in some ways, working on Art Prof, I know has really helped me have some degree of stability where it oftentimes feel like there is none. So I'm hoping that that can be a grounding force, even if it feels like a very small gesture on our part. Neil is asking, how do you feel now that you're an internet sensation? I don't know if I'm a sensation. I'm on the internet. I can definitely confirm that. But I will say, Neil, from my point of view, things really have changed in that things are taking off and we're getting so many results. Just like the number of people doing the art dares blows my mind. And the number of you guys who are drawing along with me during the live anatomy drawing streams, that's amazing to me that people are drawing with me at the same time. It's like that to me is so visible. It's like people can tell you all they want. Oh, I watched your stream and I really enjoy this. That's great. Don't ever stop doing that. But it's like when I see somebody produce a drawing and they post it on Instagram and they say, I learned this. I had a great time drawing with you. That is just the best thing ever. Albert is saying, what are your favorite art-based or artist full-length movies, fictional or documentaries? You know something, Albert? I'm sorry to say this, I have a hard time watching artist movies because I just feel like so much of the time they romanticize everything to death. And it just ends up feeling so fake to me that I can't get over that. I feel like there's one that I sort of liked. Maybe it was Camille Claudel. It was the French version, but it was really sad. It does not have a good ending. It's not a very inspiring movie. I'm going to have to think about that and get back to Albert because there aren't a lot of really authentic artist movies out there. Ripple of Aqua is saying, do you think it's worth applying to higher education right now while still in a global pandemic? I think that's a pretty personal question that really depends on everybody's individual circumstance, because I know for some people, when they apply for higher education, it's a really big financial risk. For other people, it's not. For other people, it's like, oh, no problem. Of course, we totally have the finances to cover that. And so I think you just have to take a really good, hard look at where you are and what your priorities are. I mean, I know all the schools right now are really, for lack of a better word, in crisis. And I have a lot of students who are saying to me, look, I don't know what I'm going to do if the campus doesn't reopen. A lot of students are saying in a lot of different places online that if they don't go back to normal, that they're going to take a gap year, and nobody really knows. I mean, I think for a lot of people, it's the uncertainty that is very difficult to talk about right now. Allison Edwards says, how do we use art to better address difficult topics through our art and share it in positive ways? Well, I'll tell you, there's so much going on right now on social media, and I find it very overwhelming for the most part because, oh my goodness, things are just happening so quickly. But I would just say to think about what's one gesture you can make that can help. Because I think what's tricky about social media is that, especially with current events and how touchy a lot of subjects are, it can be hard to manage that. I mean, I'm not somebody who typically works with political topics or topics that are very charged, and so I don't know that I'm the best person to give you advice. But I'll tell you guys, I don't know if anybody saw, but if you guys go to my Instagram, I did repost a story of a post that we put on the Art Prof Instagram today, and it's a zine by Julie Sharp, who actually happens to be the June Art Dare guest artist. And I just really love that she made such a small object, but she's actually going around her neighborhoods and she's distributing it. So I sort of like that idea a lot, Allison, because it's a very local concept. And I think a lot of people get very overwhelmed because the issues are so big. It's like, where do you even begin? And I love that Julie just took a sheet of paper, made a zine, printed them out. She's putting them all over the place throughout her local neighborhood. It's like, if you can think about it on a more local, smaller level, I think for some people it feels a little bit less overwhelming because it is a lot to have to process. Lindsay says, your channel's been really inspiring. Just wanted to thank you. I've been on a hiatus. Really want to jump back in, but I don't know where to start. Any tips for getting back into it? Well, I would say that a sketchbook, definitely the place to start because it's really accessible. It's fast. You can do whatever you want. And I would actually really suggest that you check out the June Art Dare, because the June Art Dare this month is actually, if you go to artprof.org and you click on Art Dares, is to create a quarantine diary to examine how has your life been different since the quarantine started. What are some of the routines that you have now? And Julie Sharp, who is the guest artist, has all these wonderful suggestions. So if you guys watch that stream, I think that would be a really good place to start. And just doing stuff, Lindsay, where you don't have to think too hard. I actually was doing a Skype consultation with a younger artist the other day, and they were having a similar thing where they had a lot of art history education and really knew a lot about art, but did not have a lot of experience with the making part. And so I said to them, okay, why don't you do this? Make one collage a day, because they told me that they really enjoyed using collage. And that was such a simple, concrete objective. And you say, it's just one collage, and the collage can be very small. You can pre-cut all the boards. So something where you don't have to think too hard to get started. Because for a lot of people, the starting, that really is the toughest thing to do. 10,000 Crows says, if we want to start learning to sculpt clay at home, any tips or recommendations for that? Well, I don't know specifically what type of clay you want to use, 10,000 Crows, but I think the best clay for working at home, if you're not going to use air dry clay, would be plastiline. So that's oil-based clay. So I'm going to write that in the chat because you're probably not going to remember how to spell it. So it's oil-based clay, and it's called plastiline. And one of the reasons I really like plastiline is that it never dries out. And so, yes, that's a problem long-term, because if you want to make a permanent sculpture that doesn't get ruined, you can't use it for that. But if you're just messing around and you're just playing with the clay and experimenting, it's great for that. Because ceramic clay is a pain because you have to fire it. It's really dusty. You can't put an armature around it. And so 10,000 Crows, I would go to artprof.org and I would check out under tutorials. We have a figure sculpture tutorial, and we also have a portrait sculpture tutorial, which I think would be really great for you to get started. We use air dry clay in those tutorials, but if you want, you could just use plastiline. That'd be totally fine. David is saying, Prof Lieu, you say you're the composition police. Yes, I am also the linear perspective police, by the way. How can I get better at composition from both critical thinking and practice? Where do I start? Well, you know what I would do, David, is I would find some paintings or sculpture or whatever artwork you're interested in and find some pieces that you think have really good compositions. And then ask yourself why. Say, look at Jericho's Raft of the Medusa and examine that painting. That to me is one of the greatest paintings ever. And it's an astounding composition. If you try to break down to yourself, well, exactly what is Jericho doing here to make the composition so dynamic, sometimes if you have to write it down, it makes things a lot more clear. We also have on our YouTube channel a playlist called Art Fundamentals, and there's a video in there about figure painting compositions and also portrait compositions. So hopefully those are two videos that can help you out. Okay, wow, you guys have a lot of questions. This is great. I love it. You guys are giving my brain an exercise. I've been editing all day, and don't get me wrong, I enjoy editing, but when I have to do this much all at once, your brain is just fried. And so I'm like really happy to be having an actual discussion that involves words and talking as opposed to just sitting down and editing for such a long time. Jay Cabby is saying, as I practice figure drawing this week, find myself neglecting the face. I'd love to know how you'd recommend tackling and conquering faces during figure drawing. Here's what I would say, Jay. Don't think about it as a face. Tell yourself that it's a head and that the head, like any other part of the body, matters. Because a lot of people, when they look at the head, they just think eyes, nose, and mouth. But your head is not really your eyes, nose, and mouth. Your head, actually, if I were to break it down, there's a huge, massive skull back there. You've got eye sockets, you have cheekbones, you have the jawbone, because when I'm doing a quick figure drawing, there's no time to do the eyes, nose, and mouth. There's no chance. I feel like if I have time for anything, I probably could do the top brow of the nose. I could maybe show the dividing line between the lips, but that's sort of it. I mean, forget about eyes. And so I think if you stop thinking about, oh, I got to draw a face, if you just say, I need to put a form there to hold the place, that might help you a little bit more because there's such a psychological connection with the face that we just don't have with ankle bones. And so we tend to think about them as being more important, but actually in the context of the figure, it's really not that much more important. Astro Disaster says, do you think it's problematic to have a long, complicated last name? Hard to remember and remember how to spell. Would like to use my maiden name, but it's a lot, 13 letters in an odd order. I think that it's a lot easier if you have something that's much shorter or you have initials or something. Like here's an example, okay? Jarek Krasowska, who is a wonderful, brilliant children's book illustrator, who, by the way, is one of the speakers at the Art Prof graduation on Sunday. He put together an amazing clip for us, okay? Now, I have known about Jarrett for a long time. I still cannot spell his name. His name is so hard to spell. And I feel embarrassed, but I think he knew that. And so actually, if you go to Jarrett's website, I'll put it in the chat right now. His website is studiojjk.com. And that's all his stuff across social media, on Instagram, on Twitter. It's all Studio JJK. And I love it. Because when I think to myself, oh, I want to go look at Jarrett's Instagram, I don't have to say, wait, how do I just say, oh, it's Studio JJK. So I think Astro Disaster, that's a smart move to recognize that if the name is hard to spell and it's long, you probably are better off having something that's a little bit shorter and a lot easier for people to remember. Because a lot of times I can't find people's Instagrams, not because I'm not trying hard, but just because they have a weird handle that I can't remember. So something really simple is very, very helpful. Zara says, I know logically not everything I do is going to come out well. Still want to come out with something I can be proud of. Rarely does it ever. I don't know if I'm afraid of failure or if I'm a perfectionist, listening too much to my self-doubts. Is there something that worked for you on how to get out of your own head and just start? How did you overcome all this brain garbage? Does this ever get any easier? I'm constantly getting in my own way to the point where I'm feeling like my own enemy. You know what? I think that what you're feeling, Zara, is extremely common. In fact, tell us in the chat right now if what I just described that Zara said, if that is a familiar feeling, tell us in the chat, because I bet you anything, Zara, almost everybody is going to say yes. We've all been there, where you just paralyze yourself. We're our own worst critics. I mean, I will torture myself over something that honestly other people would say, oh, that's fine, no problem. What's your problem, right? So a lot of it is in your head. I do think it does get easier. And the reason I think it gets easier is I think at a certain point, if you can up your productivity enough that the individual pieces feel less important and precious to you, that does make a difference. Because I've definitely worked with a lot of students, say in high school, who sometimes are very used to, say, working on a drawing for 3 months. And so that's the only drawing they're doing for such a long period of time. And so for them, if anything goes off, which it will, because in 3 months, something is not going to be perfect, of course, they end up getting very, very frustrated. And so, Zara, I think what helped me is when I went to art school, they had us making so much work all the time that I just could not put that much emotion into everything. I just had to make it and move on. And so, Zara, it could be that maybe you need to up your productivity in terms of numbers. I'm not saying in terms of time. So let's say typically you draw 1 hour every day and you do 2 drawings in 1 hour. Instead of making 2, do 4. And yeah, they're going to be quicker, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's good because you'll think about them less. Because so much of this is in our heads, you guys, and we all have this problem. It's not an easy thing to conquer by any means. Michael is saying, recently got accepted to RISD. Wanted to know what advice you would give to incoming students. Any things you would recommend to do the summer before? I would say, Michael, I don't know, this is not exactly very doable right now because of the pandemic, but do the stuff that you're not going to be able to do when you get to RISD. For example, if you are able to spend more time with your family, do that now. Because a lot of art students say, oh, well, I got in, I'm so excited. Oh, I need to sharpen my skills before I get to... I'm like, no, you need to hang out with your friends. And I know it's not easy right now because of the pandemic. Obviously, there's a real limit to what you can do, but spend time with people you're not going to see. Eat a lot of your family cooking. I mean, eat locally, like do all those things. Get takeout at your favorite deli if they're offering it. Like, do all those things that you're not going to be able to do when you get to art school because you're going to be busy when you get there. You don't need to be doing all this stuff right now. You're going to have time to hone your skills when you actually get there, you guys. So don't worry about that. Thank you so much for the super chats, you guys. Really appreciate your support. I know a lot of people were saying to me that they were bummed that they literally just discovered us last week, which is so cool. Love it when you guys find us. And some people were bummed that they couldn't participate in the spring raffle. But I'll tell you guys, you can support us anytime you want. You can support us if you would like to become a Patreon supporter. We also have a one-time donation set up. And so the raffle is not the only time that you guys can support us. You can do it anytime you want because we need all the help we can get. We are a very scrappy grassroots organization of artists, and we need your support as much as you can give it. Jordan says, do you have recommendations for pieces to put into an experimental portfolio? Jordan, can you tell me what you mean by experimental portfolio? Because depending on what field you're in or what the portfolio is for, it's really, really different. So maybe if you type in the chat more specifically, I can answer a little bit better. BI says, any advice for transitioning from crafts type art to more form-based art? With jewelry, it seems so easy to incorporate ideas I see online, but with drawing, it feels much harder. Well, I guess what I would think about is maybe shifting to different materials. Here's an example. On our website, we actually have a copper tooling tutorial. So here, I'll type that in here. It's a copper tooling tutorial. It's in the YouTube playlist for 3D tutorials. And I happen to really like that tutorial a lot because even though technically speaking, she shows us how to create a cuff, it's actually a very sculptural approach. And so you might try taking familiar jewelry items that you know well, but maybe trying to apply them in a different way, putting them into a different type of format. And that might be a really fun way to go about doing that. And I think with drawing, I mean, if you guys are looking for ideas, go to artprof.org. If you go to the complete art school portfolios guide on the tutorials page, you're going to see that there's a page there called art prompts. And we just have tons of suggestions for different assignments to get you guys started. Sometimes people just need a place to start. Usually once you give somebody a prompt, they'll know where to go, but it's hard to find the prompt if you don't have any experience with that. Vicky Fox says, do you get drawings and paintings as birthday gifts? Do you give art away as a gift? I usually do it for close friends. Oh my God, all the time. It's like my favorite thing ever. I mean, we actually have a rule in our house, my family and I, that every piece of art that's on the wall has to be made by somebody we know. And so we have never really bought artwork ever because people are always giving it to us, or we're doing a trade. And it's really cool because I have this engraving by my former printmaking professor. That's a really big engraving. For an engraving, it's gigantic. And it sits above our piano. And it's very funny because my kids told me, my daughter said, I always thought that was a pen drawing. And then one day I explained to her that, no, it's an engraving. This thing is carved out of metal with a burin, and her brain just exploded. So I just love that there are these stories for all of these pieces. And I have students who give me pieces all the time. And I wish I could build a museum for all these pieces because I've just got portfolios of artwork that people give me. And it's just the greatest thing ever. I mean, I love it. There's nothing better than receiving artwork from somebody you know. It's a really, really special experience. A great perk of having lots and lots of artist friends all the time. Damara is saying, have you ever tried water mixable oils? Recently got some. I want to do oil painting, but don't have access to hazardous waste facilities. You know something? I've been getting lots and lots of questions about those, but you know what? I really have not used them beyond just trying them for 30 seconds at an art store. Because I went by once at the Artsy store and they had a store demo, and so I just tried it. But I really don't feel like that was enough time for me to say if I think they're actually good or not. I really would have to spend some time on that. But I say go for it. I mean, unless you try them and you just hate them, which I don't think is going to be the case, because from what I've heard, a lot of people have found it to be very useful, then try it. I mean, if it works for you, if it works for your setup, I think that's much better than all the safety hazards and the risks. Like, a lot of people don't realize that you can't just leave these solvents around your house. It's a fire hazard to be doing all that. So you have to be very, very careful about that. Okay, Jordan Smith is updating. Rizzy's my top choice. Everyone recommends being experimental because of how freshman year is there. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. I know sometimes the terminology I think is extremely confusing for a lot of people. But I think Damara, not Damara, sorry, Jordan. I'm getting all the names mixed up. Jordan, I think there's a couple things that I don't see people do very much when they apply to art school. And I think I have a stream somewhere that has it. I just can't remember the title. It's probably in the Art School Portfolios playlist, but it's where I list a whole bunch of things that people typically don't do. Like, here's one thing a lot of people don't do. Everybody makes artwork that's a rectangle. People rarely make an artwork that's some funny shape. So if you make an artwork that is not a rectangle, that in itself is going to look very different. People oftentimes don't make political artwork. They don't usually make artwork about social issues. I oftentimes don't see a lot of mixed media. Usually when I see art school portfolio pieces, it's like straight acrylic painting, straight charcoal drawing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying, if you start thinking more broadly about, okay, well, maybe I should take my acrylic painting and maybe I should mix coffee beans into it and see what kind of textures I can get. Like, really playing with unusual supplies that maybe your average person isn't going to think about so much. So a lot of it is in the materials. Thank you so much for the super chat, Denise Flinch. You guys are really making my birthday. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the support from all of you guys. It's just incredible to have your support. Gomi is saying, how do you go about setting up a studio, rent a space, and purchase equipment, shared art studios that are pre-equipped? Well, I think, Gomi, it depends, first of all, on your budget, where you live. I have never been able to afford a studio because I live in Boston and the studio rents are astronomically expensive, unless you want to live in a closet, which for me just was not really worth the expense. But I think it's really worth thinking hard about what you need, because for some artists to not have a sink, no problem, it's fine. For other people to not have a sink, they wouldn't be able to function. So you have to really think about, what do I actually need, and do I really need that? Because some of these studio spaces are not cheap, and it's not always such a great investment. I mean, assuming that finances, you're not really, really filthy rich or anything like that, which most people are not. And so I would definitely consider that. I don't think that a studio is that necessary unless you really need a separate space just for the headspace part of it. Or also if you're working with some material that you want to bring into your home, something like that. I have been okay, but really I've been somebody who's sort of bent over backwards to change my practice so that I could work at home. And that's another option. Some people aren't willing to do that, but it really depends on your practice as an artist. Artie is asking, would lino cut prints be a good thing to put into an art school portfolio? Yes, absolutely. People rarely have printmaking in portfolios. Usually if I'm reviewing portfolios and I see a print, I go, oh my God, printmaking, yay! I mean, I get excited because I'm a big printmaking nerd, but yeah, you don't see that very much. And also, Artie, if you go into our YouTube playlists, we do have a playlist on printmaking, and we have a tutorial on rubber stamps, linoleum cuts, and also jelly plates, which is basically monotypes, but without using the professional printmaking press, which is really, really fun. So check out all of those tutorials because they have a lot of good things. Sila is saying, what are good things to put in the portfolio? Yep, so look at the complete Art School Portfolios Guide, because wow, we really are inching up on art school portfolio season. I feel like we just finished last year, but yeah, I mean, people are already starting to think about that. Let's see, Neil is saying, my smartphone is crappy at taking photos of colored artworks I don't have an access to a camera. Is there something I could do? Well, I mean, you could see if you could borrow one from somebody, but there's not a lot you can do if your device is just not very good. I mean, the one thing that can help is if you have good lighting, but then to have good lighting, you have to buy good equipment. And so that's not easy either. I mean, I would say, Neil, unless you're working professionally, that it's not hugely important. So I wouldn't stress too badly about it. I mean, for somebody like me, that would be a major problem. Like, I would not be able to exist without a good functional camera. But if it's not like, if your career's not dependent on it, you're probably going to be okay. I know it's frustrating. I mean, it's not fair that you have to deal with something like that. But yeah, it's not going to make or break your experience as an artist. Luis is saying, I want to post my drawings on social media because I'm happy with everything I'm learning, but I don't want my mindset to shift into needing to be recognized and liked for it. How to balance it? Well, you know what I would do, Luis, is I would definitely not post everything. Because I know some people do that. The second they make something, it's on social media. And I don't always do that. I'm sort of selective. There are some things that I'm like, oh, I'm not going to post this. And so you have to feel that there's a private side of you as an artist that does not need to be shared. Nobody needs to see that. Or if you want to share it, but not have it be such a big public thing, just send it to a friend. And I have a lot of people that watch us on Art Prof who just instant message me stuff on Instagram and they just want to show it to me. And I think that's really cool. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll get really big and I won't be able to do that anymore. But right now I am looking at a lot of stuff and I love it. I can't always give you guys a long critique or tell you everything I want to say, but I think some people just want it to be seen. And so sometimes if you just send it to one person or a smaller group, that can be kind of a nice thing. Sila saying, quite young, don't know where and how to show my art. Was wondering if you know good ways to show my artwork. Sila, are you talking about online or are you talking about a physical brick and mortar gallery situation? And also, I don't know what you mean by quite young, if you're meaning high school or college, because everybody interprets young differently. So maybe if you can send a follow-up with a little more information, that'll help me give you a more accurate answer. Angelic Enigma is saying, any recommendations for particular printmaking paper? Well, it depends on what you're doing, because not all printmaking paper is good for all materials. I mean, I would say a pretty reliable printmaking paper that does tend to work across a lot of forms would be Reeves BFK. So I'll put that in the chat right now. So printmaking paper, Reeves BFK. And of course, within Reeves BFK, there's all these different types. There's also Arches. Reeves is a little bit more cottony, but really it depends on what you're doing, because when I was doing woodcuts, I was having students print on Bristol board. And sometimes if you're doing this technique called chine-collé, that's where you actually print on a sheet of rice paper that adheres to a backing board. It just really, really depends. So there's no one size fits all printmaking paper, but you should do your research, because the paper really can tremendously alter the results that you get out of your printmaking materials. Orion is saying, is there a playlist for advice on MFA related advice? Yes, there is. If you go to playlists on our YouTube channel, you will see we have a couple, I believe I have a couple Q&A videos where I just answered a bunch of questions. I also did one recently with Layla Faye. I interviewed her about her experience as a first-year Yale MFA student. We are trying to put together more content for people who are interested in MFA degrees. It's just I'm one person and we don't have a $5 billion budget. So it takes us a while to put stuff out there. I have so much I want to share with you guys. And honestly, it's just a budget issue at this point. We don't have the manpower that we need to produce as much as I would really, really like to. Akshia says, just want to know, what does RISD look in students who apply for an MFA in painting? Well, in a nutshell, I'm not going to talk specifically about RISD. I can tell you what MFA programs in paintings look for. They want to see that you have progressed beyond doing homework assignments. So if you look at somebody's portfolio and it all looks like projects from a painting one class or a drawing one class, or it's sketches of a nude model in class, that's not going to get you into an MFA program. They really want to see that you are engaging critically with your subject matter, that you're not just honing technical skills. They want to see that you've got something to say and that you want to have a really sustained critical practice. That matters much more. They don't care so much about, oh, how do you render shadow and light? That's not really that critical at that stage. So you really have to get past stuff that looks like assignments. Like that's what they don't want at the MFA level. Zara says, do art schools allow someone not pursuing a degree to still take classes? Toyed with the idea of taking classes at a community college, but those classes only go so far. I think it really depends on the school, Zara. So I would look up the school and see what their situation is with that, because I think it's case by case scenario. Okay, so Sila, you're talking about online. Okay, so how to show your work online. Well, what I would do, watch this video that I did recently on social media for visual artists, because I really do think that if you want to show your artwork online, social media is the place to go. I mean, if you build a website, that's fine. I mean, you should have a website if you're a professional working artist, but the website's not really where people go to see the work on a regular basis. It's more home base. So what I would recommend, Sila, just learn how to use Instagram really well, because Instagram can be very powerful, but as somebody said earlier, it can also be toxic. We also have a video about that. If you want to know how Instagram can be toxic and how to deal with that, because we all deal with that to a certain degree, then watch that video, because there's a lot of good advice in there. Damara is asking opinions on the censorship of art that happens online, especially on social media. I wish there was a social media for artists that was no holds barred. I mean, I have to say, I understand why they have those policies, because I think we know that a lot of these unregulated online platforms really don't get good results. I mean, there's a lot of really scary stuff about people whose jobs are to be YouTube moderators and the type of content they have to view. And I think it's similar with platforms like Facebook and Instagram. And so I think it's not fun that, oh, you might post an artful photograph, like say a Robert Mapplethorpe photo of a nude, which is not meant at all to be pornographic or anything like that, but that it gets flagged because it's showing some body parts. That's frustrating, but I sort of feel like I would take that over really terrible, abusive, harmful content being up there. So yeah, it's a tricky situation. I don't think that there's any correct solution to any of that. Let's see. This is a great username. I want to poop. My daughter would really like that. I'm a freshman in high school. Is it necessary to start working on art portfolios? Want to go to RISD? Been wanting to know if there's anything that I should do to prepare for it. I don't think you need to start now. It's too soon. I think that probably when you're a junior, you want to start really doing your research. I think the important thing is just draw. Draw a lot. Keep a sketchbook. Draw from life. Try all different types of materials. Just enjoy yourself. Like, you guys shouldn't be thinking about preparing a portfolio because it's going to make you think that you have to do things a certain way. And I think when you're in ninth grade in high school, that's not really that necessary. David Pena says, how do I approach putting a deep thought or concern into an art piece without being too literal, obvious, and dull? I think the way to do that, David, you got to go through a lot of ideas. Most of the time, the reason why people come up with ideas that are very cliche or generic, it's usually because they haven't spent a lot of time thinking about the idea. So a lot of the times when I'm working with students in the classroom and they have an idea and I say, well, I want you to work on it more. They're like, but I know I like this one. And I say, how do you know? You've only done one idea. And most of the time when I make them do 10 or 12 ideas, they realize, oh, wow, that first idea was not good. So David, if you can get past that first idea and get to the 12th or the 15th idea, that's when I think the really good stuff starts to come along. Because if I say to you guys right now, everybody that's watching, make a drawing about time. What does time mean? All of you, your first reaction is going to be, oh, I'll draw a watch. I'll draw an hourglass. That's the first thought that you have. Is that an original thought? No. It's like the biggest cliche ever. But that's because you only had 2 seconds to think about it. Now, if I sent you guys away and I said, think about that for a week and do lots and lots of different questions and sketches, then you're going to come up with something better. So a lot of it is just not going with your first impulse, because your first impulse is almost always the cliche. In fact, sometimes what I do is I really try to identify the cliche. I say, what is the cliche? If the cliche is a watch, don't do the watch. If the cliche is an hourglass, let's not do the hourglass. Let's move on to something else. All right, let's see what's going on else in the chat. You guys are just full of questions. This is great. Let's see. Gomi says, could a self-taught artist with no bachelor's degree apply to an MFA? I think they will not allow you to apply without a bachelor's degree. You would have to do the research and check what the school requirements are, but that would be my guess. I could be wrong, but do your research and find out. Let's see. Seb says, how valuable can adding a graphic design piece be in an art portfolio, like digital art or packaging? I mean, it's good. It definitely shows some variety. But I would say don't do it because you think that's what they want. Do it because you want to do it. Because, you know something, you guys, it just bums me out so bad when students are doing things to fulfill some checklist. And I think it's fine to ask advice for, should I do this? Should I do that? But I definitely have had students in classes before who have said to me, how do I get the A? And I'm like, can't we just love learning? Like, why do I need to tell you 3 things you need to do to get the A? And so don't think about it that way. Think about, what do I want to do? What would be fun? And if you see a prompt, say, for example, on our website, and you just say to yourself, wow, that looks really, really cool. I want to try that. That's a great reason to want to do something. Don't do something because you think you should. Do it because it's going to be fun and would be really a good experience. Ripple of Aqua says, when do you know you're an official artist? Are there any tips so you can feel qualified as an artist? I don't think that there's any moment. I think if you want to be an artist, you're an artist. There's no certification, there's no exam, and who gets to tell you that you are, you're not? And even if somebody's, oh, you're not a real artist, screw them. They're a jerk. You have to deal with people like that. So Ripple of Aqua, if you love it and you feel that you're an artist, you are. You don't need anybody else's validation or for somebody to say, oh, you need to be able to draw a certain way. That's not true. So if you feel you're an artist, I think you're an artist. Chinanler Bong says, when applying to an art school, do you just pick 12 to 20 pieces that are your best? I've heard about the categories like concentration and breadth. I have not heard anything about those categories. I could be wrong about that. You may be referring to a very particular school that has something like that. But what I'm telling a lot of students usually when they're asking me about art school portfolios is, look, if the school is asking you for 20 pieces, don't make 20 pieces. Make 40. Make 40 artworks and pick the best 20 out of those. That is usually the better way to go because there's no chance you're going to hit it out of the park on every single drawing you do, 20 drawings in a row. It's not going to happen. That's just pretty much the way it's going to be. So don't worry about that. Thank you for all the birthday wishes, you guys. I love all these super cute little emojis you guys are sending me. Thank you, Dr. Drake. All right, let's see what else you guys are saying. Albert is saying, tips on coping with art professors who are not good teachers, but are super nice. They don't lecture at all and just eat lunch during each class and deliver some random grade later on. I mean, unfortunately, I think like any field, Albert, there is always going to be a mixed bag. You're not going to get the best professor every semester for every single class. And I think I would just say that you do the best you can in that situation. And it might not hurt you. In fact, I would say just try to talk to them sometime. Maybe during a break or maybe after class, just try to pick their brain a little bit because I definitely feel like when I was in art school, I had some teachers that were, I guess, a little bit more laid back. They weren't as proactive as teachers to teach things. But then when you sat down and you talked to them, you could sort of get it out of them. And so I'm not saying that that's ideal necessarily, because as a student, ideally you wouldn't have to do that. But sometimes I think just that little extra nudge, they can really tell you a lot of cool stuff, because I think that a lot of students from what I've seen don't take much initiative to get to know their teachers beyond the classroom. And I'll tell you, that's a missed opportunity, because some of my favorite people in the universe are former teachers of mine. And it's because I reached out to them and because we stayed in touch. So those are really precious relationships that you can develop, but they're not going to develop unless you as a student actually take the initiative and the time to make that happen. Edelman Espinoza, happy birthday from Costa Rica. Oh, cool. I don't know that I've ever seen anybody here from Costa Rica. I feel like every other stream, a new country pops up in our stream. Tell me right now. I'd love to know, what country are you from right now? Because I feel like I'm setting this new like art prof record. It's like, oh my God, now we know somebody in Morocco. Now I know somebody in Costa Rica. It's just the coolest thing. Like, it was never like that before I started art prof. I never knew people in countries that were that far away. Guadalupe says, what would art teachers love to look at from students in their art? What's their favorite thing to look at? I guess what you're asking is what do we want to see the students to do? I hope I'm answering your question correctly. I just want to see students do what they love. I really do. I don't want them to do what they think I want them to do, because that never works out well. They're miserable if they're doing what they think I want. It doesn't work that well. So I just want students to be able to recognize what their desires are and to act upon that. Because actually, as simple as that sounds, it's not easy for a lot of students. A lot of students really do feel an obligation to their career, to their school, to their teachers to be doing certain things. Wow, this is amazing. We've got Australia, Malaysia, Brazil, Russia, Canada, Costa Rica, Utah, Korea, Germany, Wisconsin, South Africa, Portugal, China. Oh my goodness, this is incredible. Dutch and Spain, Philippines, so cool. South African, but currently in the UAE. That's a really amazing community that we have here, you guys. By the way, normally I would go onto Discord and hang out with you guys there for a little bit after the stream, but because of this whole Art Prof graduation stream, which I am so super excited about, I got to get back to the editing because otherwise the stream is never going to happen. But you guys should definitely join the Discord because all the cool kids are doing it. So, you know, you got to be one of those cool kids, even though I'm so not one of them. But anyway, if I were, that's what I would do. And subscribe to our channel and join the Art Prof family. And thank you so much, everybody, for the lovely birthday wishes. You guys made this a great day. Feeling the love. You guys make Art Prof exactly what it is to all of us. And thank you so much to our top Patreon supporters who make this possible, who keep the lights on, because, you know something, we're a little scrappy group of artists, but I think we're doing some pretty cool things, and I'm so happy to have you guys with us on this journey. Have a great night, everybody. Stay safe. I'll see you next